Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Romania once again, and we're going to have a look at yet another of the Minya beers. So first and foremost, a massive shout out and thank you to my good friend Minya, who very kindly brought me a box of Bucharest beer here to Sweden when he was visiting recently. And this is going to be review number 3 from that box, if memory serves me correctly. I've been impressed with the ones that I've had so far, and I look forward to seeing what the other ones have in store for us, because we do have a few different styles to look at. But Minya, again, a big thank you to you for making this review and the other Romanian ones possible, and to you guys watching, I hope you enjoy this little Romanian mini-series. Always cool to review new beers from new places, as I always say, and it seems that there are quite a few good Romanian breweries these days, so hopefully they start to get their beers outside of Romania a little bit more over the coming years. But yeah, for this review then, we're going to have a look at another style I've not had from Romania and another brewery that I've not had anything from before. So hopefully this is a good one. Let's crack on with the review then. So we are going to head to Bucharest once again. We're going to go to the western part of the city this time, and we're having a look at my first beer from Anagram Brewery. So this particular beer is called the Cinco De Cuatro. It comes in at 4.7% ABV, and this one is a Baja lager, as they are calling it. Basically a Mexican style lager, I guess we could say. So yeah, Baja, if I remember rightly, is that little kind of peninsula that sticks off the kind of west coast of Mexico, actually. But if you've watched the channel from the early days, you might happen to know that I'm a big fan of the Mexican lagers. I did enjoy a little bit of Modelo and Pacifico Clara back in the day, even a little bit of Sol and Corona, come to think of it. But yeah, I do enjoy the nice light drinkability that you get from the Mexican lagers, in fact. So definitely quite random to find a Mexican lager brewed in Romania. But yeah, these guys seem to have a fairly good reputation, so I'm curious to see how it turns out. Yeah, the Cinco de Cuatro. So let's have a go at this one then and see how we get on. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Anagram Brewery. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for the Romanian beers that I'm reviewing for you, and like I said, that will be added to regularly over the next little while as I work my way through the Minya beers, and hopefully we can add more things and new breweries to that regularly over the next little while. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Anagram Brewery then, on to my brewery notes, and I will apologise in advance for any bad Romanian pronunciations in this video, because it's a language I have no idea about pretty much. But yeah, as I've mentioned to you already, Anagram Brewery are based in Bucharest, the capital city, and the main man behind this company is Paul Andre Baran, who is originally from California in the US and founded it along with his wife Raluca. So Paul originally studied political science at San Francisco State University in the mid to late 1990s, and during his student days he was a waiter, and this gave him a lot of exposure to the craft beer culture over there. But in 1998 he settled in Romania, and he's worked for many years in the technology sector. He was actually appointed as a digital champion by the European Commission in 2012, and he remained in this role until 2018, but he is still an active consultant in this field to help improve the digitisation in Romania with organisations such as the Romanian American Foundation and things like this. I actually found an interview with him with someone from the European Commission, and he was talking about all the work that he did, and it's actually really quite interesting how, you know, just they're helping to kind of digitise and computerise Romania, in fact. So yeah, that's definitely worth a look. I might put the link to that in the video description below. But to take a step back again, when he moved to Romania, he said that he really missed the American craft beers, and so he started to homebrew his own, just to, you know, have a supply of them. But having done this for a number of years and developed a good few recipes, he reached out to David at Three Happy Brewers, also in Bucharest, and he asked them about gypsy brewing there. They said yes, and then they produced their West Coast IPA there for the first time in May of 2018. And they've gone from strength to strength since. But the name Anagram apparently is taken from the fact that Raluca spent a lot of time doing word puzzles on the flights between the US and Romania back in the day when they were visiting each other. But it's also supposed to be inspired by the mixing of ingredients that you get in beer when you make it. But they continued to brew as gypsy brewers until establishing their own brewery next to the Locale Mori in western Bucharest in June of 2020, and they started to produce their first sour beers that year as well. And as of August 2021, when I'm producing this beer for you, they've produced in the region of 15 different kinds of beer. Quite a few different styles in there. There were different kinds of IPA. There was 2 sours from what I remember. One of them was a coffee sour and it sounded quite interesting, and I think there was a couple of dark beers like a porter and a stout, if I remember correctly. But yeah, interesting little brewery. I couldn't find out exactly how much they're brewing per year, but from the pictures it looked as if their brew kit might be like a 1000 or a 1500 litre brew kit, something like that. It did look a little bit bigger, so maybe a 1500 litre in fact. But they had a fair few fermentation tanks and the facility looks quite nice and modern in fact. But it's right next to a lake, so you can go to the brewery, drink a few beers and you're right on the lake, which is pretty cool actually. And they do apparently have a basketball court right outside the place as well. But yeah, that was all the information I was really able to find on Anagram Brewery. And if you want to learn a little bit more, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for your history section in this video. Let's crack on and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll let you have a little look at the artwork just before we open up. As you can see, the cactus and the limes are on there, just kind of representing Mexico and things. And there you can see the Anagram Brewery symbol actually, which is pretty cool. But as I said to you earlier, this one is a 4.7% lager beer. I'm guessing that it's a Mexican style lager. So it has corn in it as well, which is a common theme with Mexican lagers of course as well. But the hops used in this beer are Magnum, Centennial and Satz. Magnum is a German hop, if I remember rightly. It comes in around 4.5 to 6% alpha acid, gives you a lovely kind of spicy note to it. That it's got Satz from the Czech Republic, or Žatec as they call it, which again is one of the noble hops, slightly more spicy than, you know, the Hallertaus and the Tettnangers and things that you'll get from Germany. And then it's got a bit of Centennial in it, which is an American hop, usually about 12% alpha acid, and it's known for its big kind of lemony, zesty sort of note. So this should turn out to be quite interesting, and I'm curious to see how they integrate the flakes of the corn flakes and stuff into this one. But yeah, nicely presented I have to say. Plain black bottle cap of course, 330ml bottle. I'm not sure how much this beer cost. Minia wouldn't take any money for it, so I have no idea what to tell you about the cost of this one. So again, just a big thank you to Minia for making this one possible. Like we say, a 4.7% lager beer this one. Mexican style lager to be specific. So yeah, I guess that is it. That's all we need to say about the beer, other than to get it out and have a taste. So let's go for it then. The Cinco De Cuatro, 4.7% Baja Lager, as they are calling it, from Anagram Brewery. Oh, there we go. Oh, no, it's okay. It's all right. I was worried the beer was going to go and explode on me there. But yeah, 4.7% Mexican style lager beer from Anagram Brewery in western Bucharest. We'll see how we go with this. We might have to pause the video and just let this one settle before we continue with the tasting. Sometimes this happens when we have the beers. Maybe this one got a little bit shaken up. I think we are probably going to have to pause the video then. So yeah, we'll do that for the moment. I'll get the rest of the beer poured and just let it settle. So you can see that the head is a massive big white thing, but we'll let the beer settle down a bit and we'll come back in just a second. So slange you for just now. We'll get this guy poured and we'll be back right away. Alright guys, well here we are again. We finally managed to get all the beer into the glass. So before we start off with the tasting and stuff like this, just a little bit about the name. So Cinco de Cuatro. Obviously this is Spanish. It translates into English literally as 5 of 4. I guess we could say, and it's a reference, as far as I can figure, to something in the American sitcom Arrested Development, which aired in the early 2000s. Now apparently this was an event that was started to use up all the remaining food and destroy the decorations from the Cinco de Mayo celebrations. So yeah, Cinco de Mayo is of course very important for Mexican people because it commemorates the Battle of Puebla with the French Empire, which they won in 1862, and there was a whole thing about the war on May the 5th, or the war on Cinco de Mayo, I guess we could say. So as far as I can figure, that is where the name comes from, in fact, and do correct me on that in the comment section below if I'm wrong, because you know, people over watching in the States and things like that, Spanish speakers, will obviously know quite a bit more about that than I will. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, we got the beer into the glass finally. You can sometimes get problems like this where the bottle conditioning has just gone a little bit awry, but you know, you just have to roll with that sometimes. It happens when you're doing beer reviews, as annoying as it is. So yeah, there we go. But anyway, as you can see then, this beer has poured almost kind of similar to a New England IPA. But yeah, as you can see, it had a massive white head on it. This one, I think it was fair to say that it was a perfect white, you know, and however many fingers it was, I don't know. But yeah, you can see when the beer has settled down, it's got a lovely kind of golden, I would say it's almost like a kind of like a hazy sort of straw colour, this one, but a little bit darker than that. It's almost got a little bit of a kind of peach juice type colour to it, of course. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malt that you use. This determines the magnitude of the colour of your beer, of course. 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any adjuncts that you use and any barrel aging that you do will also play a role in determining the colour of your beer. But yeah, this one is obviously unfiltered, hence why you've got a little bit of haziness to this one as well. But in terms of a Mexican lager, colour-wise, it's kind of what you'd expect, but the haziness, of course, isn't something that you would normally associate with, you know, the bigger brands of Mexican lager beers. But yeah, nothing wrong with that for a craft version, of course. And you know, when it comes to filtering versus unfiltering, usually you get more flavour out of the unfiltered variants. But other than that, I don't think there's too much to say about the appearance of this one then. Kind of what you would expect apart from the haziness. And now that the head's died down, it should hopefully be alright. But let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Yeah. Yeah, aroma-wise, it smells pretty nice, actually. Yeah, so it's kind of what you'd expect. You've got a nice sort of white bready backbone to this one. You can definitely get a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty quality to it as well. 1 or 2 little tiny maybe woody aromas, I guess we could say. But yeah, you can certainly smell the sweetness of the corn in this one. I do get a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing in there. So yeah, these are all elements that you can normally pick out of these are the elements that you can always normally pick out of a Mexican lager. But yeah, it's got a lovely kind of bready base to it, that's for sure. It's certainly got a little bit more, as I say, you've got a white bready sort of base to it. You've got a little bit of a kind of as we say, a little bit of a kind of bread crusty thing. On top of that though, you can smell a sweet kind of corny element, and then a wee bit of sweet caramel maybe. Not sure if I'd go as full, I'm not sure if I should go all in and say it is a full kind of caramel, but it's certainly got a wee bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing in this one, and that sort of makes sense in this one. It said, you know, it's barley malt, cornflakes and hop in this one, so yeah, it's kind of interesting for sure. You can certainly get a wee bit of the corn sweetness out of this beer, that's for sure. But yeah, you can get a wee bit of yeasty, that lighter, airy, yeasty kind of bread out of this one too. But let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer. So yeah, hoppy side of things with this one, I would say, yeah, hoppy part of the beer certainly has a little bit, it's got quite a bit of pungency to it, I would say. So you certainly get a wee bit of a kind of more earthy quality coming out of this one. You can certainly smell that at the back of the nose, but you've got a nice big floral aromatic note to this one. It's quite spicy, in fact, and when you've got Magnum and you've got Sats in there, which are most likely the bittering hops in this one, then that does kind of make sense, because both of those hops can pack a fair wee bit of spicy punch to them. Obviously not as much as the Centennial could, but remember, your bittering hops tend to be the early addition hops. As you go through the course of the wort boil, you've got a trade-off from bittering qualities over to flavour and aroma qualities, the later addition hops. are the ones that give you the kind of more flavour and aroma components there. So probably I would suspect the Magnum and the Sats are most likely to be the bittering hops in this one with Centennial. Potentially they'll use a little bit of that in the bittering stage, but most likely it will be used for the aroma side of things. But yeah, a little bit of earthiness, good little bit of floral aromaticity, and there is quite a wee bit of a kind of grassy zestiness out of this one, so that's interesting for sure. On the fruity side of things, you get a little bit, you do get a wee bit of a kind of slightly, apricot note out of this one. You get a wee bit of a kind of dried peary sort of thing, these type sultana type notes, but there is quite a bit of that kind of lemony character. For me, you can get a lot of the kind of lemon zest from the Centennial in this one, and that's not surprising, to be honest. It's got quite a, it's certainly got quite a kind of zesty sort of punches to it as well. You can maybe get a little bit of lime under there as well, a little bit of a kind of juicier lime if you like, but I do get quite a bit of lemony zest, and as we say, that will be the Centennial in this one. But it's quite interesting actually. I do find my nose, it smells like my nose feels a little bit saturated after smelling this one, I have to say. So it smells a bit different obviously to the macro Mexican lagers that we had from the hoppy side of things, but the malty side of the beer is a bit more bready, but it's not too far away with the kind of corny side of things and the biscuity part that's coming out of the beer. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure of what we will get from this one, but aroma wise it is certainly quite interesting. So yeah, I think it's about time that we dive into this beer then. So this one is the Cinco de Cuatro, a 4.7% Baja lager, as they're calling it. But I think it's kind of a Mexican lager, we could say, from Anagram Brewery in Bucharest in Romania. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanja, Sko, Salud, or as they say in Romanian, Noroc. Let's go for it. Thank you to Mina once again for this as well. Oh yeah, that is very, very nice actually. I will say, because the carbonation went a little bit mental in this one, it's actually very, very smooth, and it's quite nice. It actually, in some ways, it reminds me of, for example, like a Czech Svetli or a Munich Helles that you get from the tap. It's got a little bit of that kind of vibe to it, which is quite funny. But it's a nice beer, that. I will say this is a nice kind of easy drinking beer, absolutely. And it is a wee bit warmer than it should be as well because of how long it took to pour. I maybe should have stuck it in the fridge when I was doing that and just done it kind of gradually, but hey ho, we are where we are with this one. You get one shot with these beers that people give you as gifts, so there you go. But remember, your definition of a lager beer. Definition of a lager beer is a cold temperature fermentation, bottom fermenting yeast. The fermentation takes place between about 8 to 12 degrees. Ales, of course, are high temperature fermentation, top fermenting yeasts, and their fermentation takes place usually between like 15 and 18 degrees or whatever. Lots of different types of lager, of course, mainly Czech and German styles, which are quite similar to each other. The Bocks are unique to Germany, the Vienna lagers are really unique to Austria. But you've got the blonde lagers, Helles in Germany, Svetli in the Czech Republic, Dunkel in Germany, the mahogany one, the Cherny in the Czech Republic, Schwarzbier in Germany, the black lager, Tmavi in the Czech Republic. You've got the Bock beers in Germany, you've got the Märzen as well, and the Märzen is an amber lager, probably equivalent to the Czech Letzak, I would say. But lots of different types of lager there. You've also got the Italian Pilsners these days, the Czech Pilsners, Mexican lagers too. There's quite a few different lager beers out there these days, but basically, as we say, cold temperature fermentation beers. And this one, as I say, because of the breadiness in this, it almost does have a little bit of a kind of ale-like quality when you drink it, but you can feel in the body that it is a lager beer. But it's certainly really nice and drinkable. I can imagine drinking this straight from source on tap. So who knows, maybe when I make it to Bucharest I can get out there and drink some of these at the brewery. That would be pretty cool actually. Incidentally, their website is still under construction, so I couldn't really find any pictures of the little bar that they have. But yeah, who knows. That would be pretty cool to go and see that. But anyway, I will say this is a really nice drinkable lager beer. So let's try and break it down for you then. Straight away across the middle of your palate with this one, you can feel that nice, smooth, white bready character there. That just blankets the middle of your palate there, both in the middle third of your palate and the back third of your tongue. It's a wee bit more grainy towards the back third of your palate though, but let's focus on the middle third of your tongue just now, as we always do. So if you go to either end of that middle third of your tongue, you certainly get a wee bit more of a kind of bread crusty quality there. Smooth, white bready note on top of it, like I say, and it's quite fluffy in a sense. So I do like how that goes together in this beer. It's very soft actually, but sitting on top of that soft white bready layer, you can certainly taste the kind of corny. You can certainly taste the slightly oily, corny type note in this one, which I enjoy. So I do like that. Yeah, I do like that with this beer. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how that sort of just lingers there. It does get a little bit sweeter the further you go into the aftertaste. It's a very, very straight shooting beer, this one, but it goes about its business really quite nicely. On top of that kind of more oily, corny layer, in the dead centre of the palate, you certainly get a wee bit of a sweet caramel in there, and then as you move further out towards the kind of edge of the tongue, or that middle third of your palate, there's a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing out of it. So I like how that goes together, absolutely. But yeah, there's the biscuity notes, as I say though, and the sort of sweeter, almost caramelly element, they're quite minimal, to be honest with you. I would wonder, you do get, if you go from the dead centre of your palate towards the back of that middle third of your palate, there's a wee bit of crispness in there, so there could well be a little touch of Pilsner malt in this one. That wouldn't surprise me, but like I say, the dominant flavours in that middle third of your palate are the kind of fluffy white bread, the slightly oily, corny layer that sits on top of it. It's almost like a corn syrup, to be honest with you. Then on top of the corn syrup you get, as I say, a wee tiny little bit of a concentrated caramel in the middle of the palate. That's the boozy side of the beer, and as you move further out from that, you get a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one. So yeah, McVitie's digestive biscuity side of this beer is quite interesting. So yeah, interesting stuff on the middle third of your palate with this beer. And as I say, either end of that, there's a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty element. So yeah, kind of interesting, as I say, how that goes together. But yeah, other than that, I don't think there's too much more to say about this. Maybe some slightly woody undertones there towards the front half, the middle third of your tongue, but yeah, interesting. But anyway, let's focus on the other parts of the beer. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate. Again, you get a wee bit of a bready build up in there, a little bit of bread crust. Then the base of that middle third of your palate, as we say, a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty thing in there, some thicker white bready note in there sitting on top of it as well. Then you can feel on top of that the more kind of airy, lighter, yeasty bready note coming out of it. So when you start from the back third of your palate there, you can feel as you move further forward, the sort of flavour just condenses down a little bit, and as you go into the middle third of your palate, it's a wee bit more squashed together. But as we say, it's not quite as squashed together as you'll get from one of the kind of macro Mexican lagers. This one, it does feel, it's almost a little bit Czech in its quality, to be honest with you. It has that sort of yeasty Czech lagery type vibe to it. The Czech ones, of course, tend to be more bready than the crisp German lagers in my experience. So it's almost like a Czech take on the Mexican lager. Actually, I've not tried many Romanian lagers. In fact, I don't think this could well be the first Romanian lager that I've tried, come to think of it. So I don't know if lager beers down there tend to be a bit more bready like the Czech ones are, of course. So let me know about that in the comment section below. But I think that covers the malty, yeasty side of this beer anyway. But yeah, hoppy side of things. Back corners of the palate, certainly there's a little touch of earthiness in there. It's quite a smooth earthiness, which you would expect from the Magnum and the Czech hop, of course, so that makes sense. But as you move further forward, you start to get a little bit of a herbal quality out of this one. Then as you reach the front corners of the palate, there's a little bit of a floral, aromatic sort of thing to this one as well. There is a wee bit of that, and it does have a wee touch of the spice to it, which again is, I think it's probably like to be the Zats, the Žatec hop in this one, the Czech one, and the smoothness I think is most likely to come from the German one. But round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more and more grassy in a sense. So I like how that goes together in this one, that's for sure. But yeah, I think the green component in this beer is quite smooth, I would say, and I think that sort of suits it nicely. So let's focus on the front third of your palate and the kind of fruity side of the beer, if we can call it that. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a bready build up there, a wee bit of a bread crust. Then the base of that front third of your palate is a sort of smooth white bready element in there, and again that works quite nicely. As I say, quite a bready, yeasty lager beer this one, but on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So on the back half of that front third of your palate, you can almost feel a little bit of the kind of corny syrup just creeping forward actually, but there's a little bit of a, as I say, a wee bit of a kind of apricot-y note in there. You get a wee bit of a kind of almost sultana-like quality to this one as well, which is quite common with Magnum and Sats in my experience. You do get a little bit of that, but as you move further forward into the front half of that front third of your tongue, you get a little bit more of a kind of oily pear, but then right behind the front curve of the palate you can feel the Centennial in there. You can feel that lemony, zesty sort of thing mixing in with the grassy esters on the front curve of the tongue. I do love a little bit of Centennial. It's a lovely hop to put into, you know, into West Coast IPAs, and it works really well in New England's actually. And I think in given the wee bit of lemony zest in this one, I think is quite interesting. It would have been cool if they put a little bit of Equinaut in this as well to give you the more limey things, or Motueka from New Zealand would be another option. So yeah, I do like how this one goes about its business in that sense. So yeah, there's quite a wee bit of a citrusy, zesty kind of thing to this one as well, and you can feel that lingering there into the aftertaste, but otherwise it's quite a bready, smooth, Czech type lager beer, this one. So interesting stuff, as I say, interesting stuff. But yeah, I think that kind of covers everything that we really need to say about this one. It's a really nice, just drinkable beer. Exactly. So yeah, the whole vibe of this beer I think is just nice. So it gets a thumbs up for me. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again, and I would be really curious to try this straight from the tap, as I say. But yeah, interesting beer, quite different to what I've had from a number of the other lagers that I've been reviewing recently. Love reviewing lager beers, of course. I think they've not had enough attention paid to them for quite some time. But yeah, on the mouthfeel side of things, this is kind of top end of light bodied for me. Carbonation, of course, was a little bit mental, so maybe it's not right to comment on that in this beer, but you know, I find it very, very smooth. Maybe that's not the intention with this one, of course, but yeah, a very smooth beer, this one. Like I say, it really reminds me of the Czech, the more yeasty, bready lagers that I've had from the Czech Republic in the past. So yeah, really very smooth beer, this one, in the malty and yeasty side of things. There's a little bit of sweetness in there, both from the corn and from what I suspect is maybe a little bit of Pilsner or Carapils malt. You do get a little bit of that with this one. You can just feel a bit of that Pilsner malty crispness from the dead centre towards the back of that middle third of your palate. So a wee bit of that, nice little bit of fruitiness to the beer, some dried fruity elements and a wee bit of a citrusy zestiness in the hoppy character to this. I think this, in terms of IBUs, what would we say? It's not very high, that. I think it's, you know, like 15 or 20 IBUs at the absolute most. I think 15 seems a little bit more likely with this one, but you know, the Mexican lagers don't tend to be the most hoppy of lager beers, of course. You know, Pilsner Urquell is about 30, so it's a bit more bitter. You've obviously got the Italian Pilsners these days that have a bit more bitterness to them as well. But yeah, this one, really nice, smooth, easy drinking beer. It's like a Mexican lager with the kind of citrusy, zesty sort of thing, but with a sort of Czech, bready, yeasty edge to it, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that works out quite nicely in this one. I think that's a good place to round off this review. So yeah, this one was the Cinco de Cuatro, a Baja lager, coming in at 4.7% ABV, from Anagram Brewery in Bucharest down in Romania. Again, thank you to Mina for making this review possible. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. It was a little bit, I felt this was a little bit all over the place because the carbonation went crazy. I lost my flow a little bit, so maybe it's a bit longer when I edit together. But anyway, I'm sure it will still work out anyway. But thank you again for watching my reviews. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Anagram Brewery as well, and I do hope that we can try a few more of their beers at some point in the future. But yeah, Slàinte just now. Check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll catch you guys in another Romanian review very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, salud in this case, and noroc for Romania. Cheers.